There's 8 things that you really need to know before you buy a MicroFlex space. Hi, I'm Steve Garrison. I'm the CEO and founder of Personal Warehouse. I'm coming to you today from Beaufort, Georgia. I'm in our fantastic model and sales unit here in Unit A1. You can see behind me, this is an amazing space. We've got a bar. We've got good workspace upstairs. We've got a great mezzanine with a great office and fun locations. I think one of the first things that's most important is a lot of people don't understand that ownership is an option, and they're only exploring lease options in the marketplace. And we provide a for sale ownership option. MicroFlex spaces are really exciting, creative spaces that bring a lot of different uses all under one roof. So the ability to have a creative office, industrial warehouse, light manufacturing and assembly, sport motor enthusiast, hobbyists, all under one roof is really unique in the market. Most other products, you're either office only or it's warehouse only. So it's really a smaller, more affordable, flexible space that people can rent or own for themselves or their business. One of the most commonly overlooked aspects in buying a MicroFlex space is people don't look into and understand their approved uses under the zoning rules and regulations. Zoning guidelines and what's approved varies greatly from municipality to municipality, state to state. So it's really important that you look into that and you understand specifically what's been approved at that project. So even if it's a general approved use by right, sometimes there's limitations and restrictions that forbid people from doing certain activities, lots of activities, or maybe it's just wide open. I think everybody just assumes that light industrial and MicroFlex spaces are approved for everything and that they're not. And a lot of the negotiation that goes in with the planning and zoning committee up front is reflected in that specific approval. So it's not as generic as people assume it to be. Some restrictions could be overnight parking, outdoor storage, the ability to run a business. Maybe it's warehouse and storage only and not running a business. Maybe you can't office in it. You know, lots of different things and considerations that are really critical that you know and understand those before you purchase. I have a lot of examples of people that have made assumptions and it hasn't worked out very well, or they've been misled on what they can do. So some projects are approved for sport motor enthusiasts and storage only. And they don't understand that with that approval, it restricts the ability for someone to run a business. And frequently salespeople will be salespeople and they'll say whatever they need to say to get you into the project. And then unfortunately, after the fact, they find out that it was never zoned and approved for that use. And the problem is that if you can't operate your business there, then it's not been a good purchase. Another problem is the city or the municipality can come in and shut you down, and potentially even worse, you could be a bad neighbor, right? And the other owners and users within that project might not like what you're doing and could put you at conflict with the Condominium Owners Association. One of our Colorado projects, we had a group that was a wealth management firm, a 2-person shop, and they were also sport motor enthusiasts. So they had a small collection of cars that they wanted to keep in their space and run their small wealth management business. So they purchased at another project that was storage warehouse only. And they were told that, yes, this is a total approved use because you're storing your cars. If you office in there, it's really not a big deal. And unfortunately, it was a big deal because the occupancy and the building code related to that approved zoning use didn't provide for them to have full-time occupancy within that unit. So they were unable to run their business operation in there. Now, they were able to keep their cars and they were fine with doing that, but the whole intention and a big part of the purchase was to have it under one umbrella, that they had their passions and their business all in one location, and they weren't able to do that. So that's a very unfortunate situation that you don't want to find yourself in. When you're looking to verify and find out what a project or a space is approved for, there's a couple of critical steps. Number one, you want to look at the rules and regulations. So you want to see what the condominium association has put forth. And sometimes there's additional restrictions within the association that is on top of or in addition to whatever the city permits or allows. Number two, you're going to want to look at what recorded documents, the final plat, the condominium plat, something, is there anything recorded about that property that talks about use? The third and final and most important item is to call up the city, talk with a planner. They're more than happy to talk to you and say, hey, I'm looking at purchasing a unit over here. I run a small business. I'm a sport motor enthusiast. I just want to make sure that my use is compatible in that project. Zoning absolutely has an impact on value and appreciation and desirability going forward. In our opinion, the broader the uses, the more people that can use the project, the larger amount of value there is in that project. So it's a bit of a judgment call, but I would say when you have a community that allows for more things and it's well managed and it's well run, it leads to higher, longer values over the long term. One of our key differentiators that we've learned over the years is that we go in and we apply and we get approved for as many uses as possible across the board. It's no guarantee that we're going to get everything. Sometimes certain activities like retail or different uses like that might be restricted, but I think that's where we separate ourselves is we don't make assumptions on use. We get it verified. We clarify with the city in advance, and we incorporate that into our approval and into our governing documents through the condominium association as well. You really shouldn't purchase a MicroFlex space unless you're absolutely certain on what your intended purpose is and what your investment goals are. Having a clear purpose and an investment goal in mind when you purchase anything, I think is important. And with real estate, it's even more so important. You know, it's a large investment. It's an important investment. I think it's a terrific investment, but I think you have to go in with a realistic expectation of how you're going to use the space, how long you might use the space, and what your potential exit strategy is for that investment. We've had a number of small business owners that did extensive space planning, right? So in advance, they laid out their space. They knew where their equipment was going, how the size of the cars, and that it was well designed and it fit their needs so that when they purchased and moved in, it wasn't a surprise, right? That it met their expectations. Another good example, we have a number of people that say, hey, I need 1,200 square feet today, but I'm going to need 2,500 square feet in the near future. So with that, they buy one unit for their current operations. They buy a second unit and lease it out. So they're generating cash flow and they have access to that space in the future so that when they're ready to expand and grow, they have that ability in the future. So you don't want to find yourself landlocked, that if you know you're on an aggressive growth pattern, that you have the space today as well as in the future, and that it's a good financial decision and meets your budget and your longer term goals. Everybody knows that what you plan and your intentions tend to change. Life happens, right? So that's one of the absolute best parts about a personal warehouse and a MicroFlex space is that flexibility and the fact that you can do many things. You can occupy it yourself. If your goals and needs change, if you wanted to lease that out and retain it as an investment vehicle for your portfolio, that's great. Or if simply you don't need it anymore, you can resell it in the market where there's a very active and robust resale market. So the asset is so well positioned that if it worked for you, it's probably going to work for a lot of other people as well and be very attractive to them because of the size, the design, and the price point and that flexibility. So even though you go in with one idea and one goal in mind, as I said, life happens, things change. You know, it's a great investment that will mold into your needs today and tomorrow. Parking is a huge issue in a MicroFlex space. And I hate to tell you, you don't own it. Most MicroFlex projects are condominiums by nature. One of the most common misconceptions in a condominium community is that you have dedicated parking. The majority of projects, all parking is shared and common. It is important that you understand the parking ratio and the parking counts within a project. We tend to park on the very high side at between 3.5 to 4 spaces per 1,000 square feet, which is at or even higher than traditional office type uses. But most projects in the sport motor enthusiast and the storage are 1 to 1.5 per 1,000. So you can see that that's a big issue. If you're going to try to run a business and there isn't sufficient parking, there's not going to be enough room for you and your staff or your employees or trucks and trailers and things like that to come and go to support your operation. So the main reason that parking isn't allocated and guaranteed to certain users is a couple of things. First of all, most projects don't want to encourage long-term overnight parking and storage of vehicles on the outside of the project. That's a big deal with planning and zoning commissions. And it's also a big issue within a lot of communities that you roll in and people start storing cars and it starts not looking as nice. And people aren't coming and going. You would think that allocated and dedicated parking would be the best solution for everybody, but it's not. What happens is people believe that that is their space and they can do whatever they want, whenever they want, and however they want. And that doesn't play well. So when everything is shared in common, it ensures that people take care of the area, they're more respectful, and it doesn't become their storage lot for their camper, their RV, and all these additional items that may or may not fit within their space. So historically, over 25 years, we've seen that shared in common, good neighbor policy, and having good rules and regulations and an association that monitors parking is the best practice and support for all. Do amenities and common areas add value to a project? Maybe, maybe not. A lot of sport motor enthusiast communities have clubhouses and additional areas where people can gather and get together. And don't get me wrong, those are cool spaces. But what I've found traveling all over the US, looking at lots of different projects, when I go to a project, I find most people in their spaces and not in the clubhouse. So you need to be aware that the cost of that clubhouse was not free. And the cost to maintain it and keep it clean and have it for everybody's benefit and long-term use is not free. So that's an added cost that you pay for in your purchase price and that you're going to pay for on a monthly basis in your CAM fees and the overall cost going forward. Some great amenities that you would probably seek out and would like to see is potentially a gated community with some type of controlled access. That's very attractive to a lot of business owners and sport motor enthusiasts. Fiber, internet access, what are the capacities? These are creative spaces that support a lot of different types of businesses, so it's important to have that flexibility. Some other things might be, how are utilities managed and does that work? Is the water bill individual to your space or is it a shared in common? Are you paying your own electrical and natural gas? Do you control your heating and those types of things? So I think it's just good to understand what's available, what is the cost, and what's the benefit. Master controlled security systems used to be very attractive. They're very expensive. They're hard to maintain, things like that. So we've moved towards where everybody manages and monitors their own space internally and externally if they would like. And we've seen really a revolution in the last 5 years with people taking their own security and monitoring into their own hands, which I think is a great benefit for the entire community. Everybody loves an amenity, and I think it just comes down to what does it do for you? Are you going to use it? And is it a good value proposition at the project? I've seen some amazing spaces where people use them a lot and it's a great value add. I've seen others that aren't that great and nobody uses it. So I think just understanding what's there, what the long-term cost and benefit of that space is, and just knowing what you're getting into. Most MicroFlex projects are condominiums by nature. I speak with a lot of people and they say, I own my space, so why can you tell me what I can do in it, right? So ownership doesn't equal control always. So it's really important that you understand that you're buying into a condominium. What's a condominium? A condominium is a subdivision of airspace, not of real property. So really technically, you don't own the walls or the sticks and the bricks. You own the airspace within the project. The rest of the sticks, bricks, and the land is owned by the association and managed and governed by them. So it's a very cost-effective and great format for people to have affordable ownership in a multi-tenant environment. The biggest hack that I don't ever see anybody do when they're buying a MicroFlex, a condominium, anything, people don't go back and read meeting minutes from the association. This is a terrific way to see what the past problems are, to see how the community operates, to see what the communication looks like, and how people get along. So that is a great thing. I know when I look at these, I go back and I read them, and it really gives you a snapshot over a 1, 3, 5 year period of what the community is like in the past is a pretty good indicator of how that's going to perform in the future. It is important to know that just because you're an owner doesn't mean that you have full control over your space and what you can do. I think that's pretty reassuring because you want to ensure that, you're going to be doing the right things within your space, but also other people within the community are going to be complying with the rules and regs and the governing documents to ensure that this community is a great place to be. One of the best parts about Personal Warehouse is we build communities and not just projects. So what does that mean? For the past 25 years, I go back to projects that I built 10, 15, even 20 years ago. And a lot of my original owners are still there. And they come out and they see me. And the thing that I commonly hear from them is, I love it here. This is such a great place. We're so thankful that we bought here. We've made so many good friends. I do business with a lot of these people. So we've created these great communities, and our governing documents work. And it's been proven to work over all the years. What does the financial health look like of your condominium association? Have you looked at their financials? Have you reviewed how much cash that they have in the bank? Is there a reserve study? Are there repair items that need to be attended to but haven't been done because they don't have the money? Is there a special assessment in the past? Is there one pending? The financial health of a condominium association is critical. It is absolutely important that you go in knowing where the financial history and the financial status of that project lies at that moment of time. It's important to note that you don't have to be a CPA or be able to really read a balance sheet or an income statement or anything like that to really understand the financial health of a project. So it's pretty simple. You need to look at how much cash is in the bank. Are there reserves? How much money is coming and going? Are people paying on time? Those types of things. It's pretty obvious if there's a red flag in the financials of something that would be concerning. And reviewing the past meeting minutes and things like that would give you a great idea of the financial health of the project as well. Personal Warehouse is different in how we develop projects in that from the day that we form the association, we make 100% of our common area maintenance fee payments every month on every unit that's not sold. So why is that important? A lot of developers don't do that. So what ends up happening is that budget and the association doesn't have the money to pay all of its bills. And that's okay for a little while, but what ultimately happens is those bills accrue and that cash flow deficit accrues. And ultimately all the owners, the future owners, take that bill over and end up paying for it, frequently resulting in a special assessment. So we don't feel that that's fair. That's not how we operate. So we pay our portion every month, just like everybody else, just to ensure that the condominium association is in great financial health from the get-go. From the day that we obtained our certificate of occupancy and start selling units, we start paying our pro rata share on all of the unsold inventory. That's really important because we want to make sure that we're paying our bills and that you don't have to. In development, whether it's commercial or residential, it's very common practice that developers don't pay their pro rata share of the operating expenses of the association over time. So unfortunately, most of those expenses get picked up by the current and the future owners, resulting in them having to pay bills from, 6 months to 9 months, maybe even a year ago, where that builder developer should have paid those expenses as part of their monthly obligation. One of the also very critical elements is from day one, we set up reserves for working capital and replacement reserves. So the key to an association long-term is cash, and ensuring that there's cash in that association, that every owner contributes and maintains a cash balance with that association every year is very, very important. So that's something that we've integrated into our documents, that every year those balances are reset, they're recast, and it ensures that there's cash and good financial viability for the association to maintain its operations, to keep up with maintenance, and to keep the place looking good and make it a good long-term investment. Insurance in a condominium environment can be very confusing to everybody, and rightfully so. So the condominium association has a master policy which covers all of the buildings, the roof, the drive aisles, the landscaping, everything from the walls out, okay? The owner is responsible for all the interior items and contents. So the association takes care of the dwelling, as you might call it, and the individual will need to insure for their own contents. So I think a lot of people believe that the master policy covers things within their unit, and it does not. So it's important that you review that, you see what the coverages are, and frequently a lot of associations are going to require that your policy name the master policy as an additional insured to ensure that there's good integration of coverage within the project. A couple examples of items that are covered and not covered. So one example would be that you come in and there's a puddle on your floor and you look up and the roof is dripping, right? So that's going to be an association issue. So you're going to call the property manager, you're going to, file a report with them, and they're going to get a roofer out and they're going to take care of that roof. And that's part of the condominium obligation. Another example is you come in and it's snowing outside and it's 25 degrees in your unit because your heater's out. That is your obligation to maintain and manage and repair that heater and take good care of it. So I think it is important that you get clear on what's covered and what's not covered. Generally speaking, the electrical things that serve your unit only are your responsibility to insure and to maintain. And things that are shared or common that serve multiple units are the association's obligation. The insurance policy that you might need for your space is going to vary greatly based upon your use and what you're doing within it. If you're an existing business, you can add that as an additional location. It'll be a simple endorsement. If you don't have business insurance or something like that, you can insure for the contents, which would be possibly your mezzanine, your restroom, your HVAC, things like that. If you have a loan, frequently the lender's going to require those basic coverages. These are not expensive. They're not hard to get. I would say they're $400 to $600 a year for a space and provides good sound peace of mind. One of the first things that you need to review and read when you're looking at a project or a specific unit are the rules and regulations. The rules and regulations are going to detail what can and can't be done very frequently within a project, how it operates, signage, parking, obnoxious uses like noise and dust and different types of things like that are very important that you know going into a space up front. Some common mistakes that people run into because they haven't read the rules and regulations is signage. They just put something up on their door, not knowing that there's a signage code, that there's an approved signage vendor. They can't put a sign on the outside of the building, or maybe they can. So that's one of the things that is very sensitive and that you want to pay attention to and ask questions before you take action and spend money. So signage is a very important one. Another common question that we get is, I'm going to do some work on the inside of my space. What approvals do I need? Do I need to submit for these approvals? Can I attach to the walls? These types of things. There's no clear answer on that. I think communication is key. I think you should trust your association manager and communicate with them regularly. It's always better to ask questions than just assume and put yourself into a position that you have a problem. Knowing and understanding the rules and regulations is essential, not just for you, but understanding for future users. If you're going to sell the space, if you're going to lease the space out, whatever your intent and long-term objectives may be, these are things that impact everybody. So the more you know about it, they're very simple. They tend to be just a couple of pages long. It's a great resource for you, and it's something that you want to ensure that you've read and you fully understand. We've covered 8 essential things that you need to know before buying a MicroFlex space, and we hope that you appreciated the information today. Personal Warehouse, I believe that we check all the boxes, providing amazing spaces for small business, sport motor enthusiasts, and we build communities and not just projects. So I encourage you to check us out at personalwarehouse.com. Follow us on LinkedIn or Facebook. And if you have questions or would like clarification or some ideas, appreciate you reaching out to us for any information.